Hello everyone and welcome back to Miranda Pitrone Art. I'm Miranda. I am super delighted to show you this new design today. I've been kind of on a journey to find different designs so that I can bring them to you, but also bring enjoyment to all of us creating these. So I've done a little bit of research on the Pysanky egg decorating, and there are so many different ways to say that I actually had to research it a bit. And so I've only ever seen it in writing, but I just absolutely love this art and I find it so delicate but bold and intricate. It's amazing, the art that they do on eggs. So I had some of these wood cut out eggs, egg-shaped ornaments, and I figured we should try one of these designs. So let's get started. I went with a variety of tools for this, just so I can show you that you can use almost any tool to create these designs, and there's a variety of them out there. As usual, I'll post all the links down in the description, but you can see I also added one of the jelly roll pens and another one of the brush markers from the paint review, the marker review I've done recently. And I just love the little shapes they make. It's very easy and you can varnish over these. This egg will be painted just in two colors as well. I used Royal Navy for the base and Snow White Titanium for the actual design. It's such a great contrast of colors. Okay, so you can see it was just a blank wood cutout. This one is about 4.5 inches, and I just poured the paint directly on the wood and spread it with a 1-inch flat brush. And this one, for some reason, the wood really soaked it up, so I actually did 2 coats to get it this dark because it didn't cover all the way. The size of the circle that I drew was 1.5 inches in diameter, just to give you an idea for the design size. So this is the angle spot detailer that I'm coming in here with to do this little flower center. So we do a center dot, but then all of the dots are the same size, which I know is different than usual. We usually go smaller as we go out, but it was 6 dots around that center dot. And now I'm just doing some kind of tiny ovals here with the brush. And then I'm going to take the etcher tool here and pull out the dot that I make here. We're doing it in between those ones we just put down. And I'm just pulling it out into a teardrop shape. And so I'm using the metal end to kind of pull that out. But if you have toothpicks or even a mechanical pencil, just something pointy that you can just pull it out with, you can do this too now, right, without any other tools. So that's part of the reason also for this video, is just to kind of show that you don't have to use brushes to do everything. You don't have to use tools to do everything. You can kind of mix and match what you have and find around your home. So this end is about the size of a 1 millimeter, and then the metal end is much, much smaller and can pull out that design. Back to the petals. We're going to come on either side of those teardrop shapes that we made and put a sort of petal leaf shape at an angle. So you kind of get that floral look here on the teardrops. So this is the plastic end, and I'm just dipping, and then I just barely touch the one end to get the smaller look of the petals. Okay, so back with my angle spot detailer here. I'm going to do some more of these flowers that we did for our center. And again, it's just a middle dot, and then one above, one below, and then two on either side about in the space. One in the middle, one above. So we're not doing the plus sign like you start off a mandala usually. And this is just a practice, but you could use your smaller end of your dotting styluses for this size. It's about the little 1 millimeter, the small ends. And we'll do that around each of these in between the teardrop elements that we put down a minute ago. And if I wanted bigger dots, I would just push down a little harder with the brush. So to get the smaller ones, it's very light on the tip. So out at the edge of the circle here, kind of cut a line through the center of the egg basically. And then on either side, I'm just going to start it here so I have kind of a reference point for the design to stay symmetrical, but also kind of stay the directionality of the egg that I like to keep. So these are the new markers that I reviewed recently with the brush tip. And I love the little petal shapes that they can make. I didn't push it down quite hard enough because obviously this is only the second time I'm using them here, but if you just press down, they're very easy. So if you get frustrated with brushes and are having difficulties, these I highly recommend to test out. They are able to be varnished over. Like I said, the petal shape comes down pretty easy, this teardrop shape. The tips stay intact fairly well for what I've used them for here. There's no push down, shaking, any of that. All right, so I'm going to grab the etcher again here. And I'm going to just do some little swipes down the side of each of those ones that we put down with the marker. You can see sometimes if I haven't glossed or clear coated the egg or the wood piece that I'm working on, the wood soaks it up really quick. So sometimes you just have to drag the paint a little farther. Otherwise, I recommend just using something to seal the wood that you're working on. I know some people have said too, with the tools that come to a much more drastic point, they have trouble keeping it loaded with the paint. So that might be something as well, as to consider glossing your piece and then painting over the varnish. As you can see, I'm just kind of tapping it on so that it wicks to the wood and then pulling it down into that swipe shape. Okay, so now I'm using the 3mm dotting stylus, and at the top of each of these little elements, we're going to put a circle dot here. So you can see too, it's just about, I don't know, a finger's breadth away from the edge of the circle that we put down with the compass. And I want to try to leave a little bit of negative space in there, so probably won't go much higher with that design. So this is the Jelly Roll pen. I used this years ago, and I've been going through things, and I just happened to find them again. And you can varnish over these as well. And they're fun to add little elements to the mandalas too. And most of us are used to writing with a pen or pencil, so it kind of gives you a little better control to do this sort of, thinner line work design. And they cover really well. I left the wood actually natural because I wasn't sure, to be honest, if the Jelly Roll would work on top of varnish. So I knew I wanted to use that for this to show you guys. But I'm just kind of doing a little loop at the top and then bring the tail down into those petal area that we did the swipes. And just to get that kind of kaleidoscope symmetrical shape idea going, like do that all the way around on both sides of the element. Okay, back to the etcher tool here. I'm going to put some little apostrophe commas in here. Just add a little bit of detail to the inner area. I don't mind negative space. Sometimes too much is not where I wanted to go with the design, but also putting too many pieces to the design sometimes can look really busy and have like an explosion of a little bit chaotic. So I just want to keep this simple and delicate. And I also just want to make sure I have enough that I can pull out here into the shape. And again, we do that all the way around as well. Now moving to the outside circle, I'm going to put down 2 larger dots with my 3mm here. It doesn't have to be with that, just something that can put the paint down for you. And we're going to pull these into a teardrop shape coming off of that flower. Now see, I'm keeping it in line too with the circle that we drew, just to kind of keep that design starting to arc around to make our circular form, but we'll be doing a design along the line, which is helpful. Then you don't have to erase the pencil if you're covering it all up with paint, but also this will help guide us to keep it in a circular form. The same on this side. Just want to get them about the same size. And you can see that there the wood started to soak it up and was going to square it off, but I just put a little more paint over to the side to fill in the grain. So these are about the width maybe of your pointer fingernail, maybe about just under, just over 1/4 of an inch long. And now I'm going to grab the petal making tool. And then I'm actually going to pull that down just a little bit. So it's a little tiny bit of a different shape, but it's like an elongated petal that way. Not quite making it a teardrop, just attaching the petal onto the line we have here. It's just angled out a bit. Rock it back and forth to get the paint down. And then pull it out with the etcher tool, the pointy end of the etcher tool. And obviously this takes practice, but you can see it's a fairly simple way to make this design. Sometimes we get intimidated by seeing these intricate patterns, but if you just take your time and move step by step through it, and you'd be surprised what you really can do. My kids and I have called it the ratatouille approach, where, the movie where the rat can cook. Anyone can cook is the motto, but I believe anybody can paint these designs if you have the right tools, the right paint, and just a little bit of patience and practice. And I'm still learning things along the way. I've been doing this for years, but I've learned something new along the way constantly. So there's never a perfect completion of this journey. It's really, really enjoyable. And never a dull moment. So I want these a little smaller, these petals, and I'm just going to use the back end, if that makes sense. Rock it kind of only back on the tool. I'm not rocking it back and forth, so you can see the considerable size difference. And that's how you get the smaller petals with this. Just hit it and rock back. Oop. See, I even slipped on that. But that's also the beauty of having a background color, is if I didn't want that there, I could just scrape the paint off and then reapply the navy over it and then redo that particular section. So you haven't had to scrap the whole piece. Okay, so this is back to the etcher tool, which is about the 1 millimeter size dotting styluses. I'm taking a minute just because I'm debating which way I want to drag the tails of these, and I think I'm going to drag them up into the center of that leafy element that we have here. So you put down the 2 dots, and then you're going to drag from the central side of the dots to put a tail up into the leaf area. Need a little bit more paint on those. And now the pointy end, and we're going to drag it up in like that. You can see the wood moving. I'm actually tapping the tool on the wood. I'm tapping it to kind of get the paint off, but also just it helps me steady. I know I see some people are not, they say don't touch the tool to the piece, but I've always done that. Maybe if you have thicker paint, it makes a peak if you do that, but if the paint is thin enough and fluid enough, these deco art paints are, then it should be fine. So this is the angle spot detailer brush again. I'm going to go a little bit larger with my dots to kind of continue our flower idea through here. Put 1 big dot at the center, and then we're just doing 4 below it in a pentagon shape. So you have 5 all together, peak at the top, 2 on either side, and then 2 a little bit smaller tucked in centrally on the bottom. I was trying to steal from those dots, but it didn't work, so I'm actually dipping it back in the white and doing some tiny, tiny, tiny pollen dots in the center here. But again, mechanical pencil, toothpick, dental tools, anything that has a really small end that'll pick up a little bit of paint here, you can use to micro dot. Okay, I'm going to grab that jelly roll pen again here and do some S curls around our line. So I'm starting at the line, up and around, drop below the line. And I want it a little bit wider here to connect. And then curl each end. My autofocus is not working out 100% here, but as long as you keep it in line with the pencil markings that we put down for the circle, you'll be fine. Just keep it on the diameter. And the width of these little S curls is literally just the width of my pinky nail. It's not very large. Going for the more delicate design. Back to the angled brush. And we're going to add a flower down here at the bottom in line with the hole at the top of the egg. So if you were to draw just a vertical line straight down, it will go right through the center of your egg. And we'll do one at the top as well. Okay, and we'll put a flower at the top here, and you can see I'm doing it backwards just because when we flip the egg around, this will be at the top. So I want the point of that pentagon flower at the top here. And then we're going to continue on our design at the bottom here just by walking out some of the dots with the brush here towards the flower, starting with the larger dot at the bottom of our S curls. And then just walking it out towards the flower. It really helps give it that dainty design, finish off the design, but also cover up our pencil lines. Usually I try to etch my lines in if I'm going to do any at all. And that way you just wipe it with a damp cloth, or once I varnish it, the lines just disappear because they were just kind of scratched onto the surface of the paint. But this navy just did not want to accept the etching tool on it. So we walked the dots at the bottom and the top to cover most of that pencil. And now I'm actually going to take that royal navy color and come over here to our little teardrop elements and just give them a couple dots down the right side of that teardrop. A little too much on here. I want them really, really, really tiny, just to kind of break up all the monotony of that white, if that makes sense. And then it kind of delineates that little section and helps it pop out a little bit. Kind of like you'll do with the depth and dimension of putting top dots on your other dots for pointillism. You can see how it kind of helps that area stand out a little bit and break up the design a little bit so your focus is kind of drawn to the whole thing instead of each little part, or the white just kind of bleeding in. Okay, so now we're going to just toss some of the little micro dot pollen grains in each of those flowers at the top and the bottom. You can see it makes the center. No, I'm just kind of etching in like I would with the edger tool. You can see this actually worked. I did get lines up there, but I wanted to just make sure I was even on either side. And I'm going to show you here, you can actually do swipes with the ball end of the stylus and drag out the paint. It does take a little bit of practice and seeing how much paint, depending on the kind of paint and which size tool. These angled ones hold a little bit more paint on them, so they can pull a little bit farther. If you just take it slowly, it will keep the paint wicked to your piece, and then you can just pull from the tail to elongate it a little bit here. And back with the Jelly Roll pen. I think we'll continue on with the same frame of mind with that, just that one little curl at the top, and then pull the tail down about the same length as our swipes that we did here. So the curl is pointing to the internal area of the egg. My autofocus is not being our friend right now, but you're just curling up and around and then follow it down to the same point that you stop the tails for your swipe here. I think I'm just going to add a little bit here, maybe like a little, kind of like a simple lotus flower idea. Not a full petaled one. We'll just put those in there just to give it something to kind of detract away from the ornament hole, the hanging area. Okay, I'm going to grab my white paint here a little bit and just add a couple dots. I don't know, sometimes when I look at it in a picture on the screen, I can get an idea for adding what things you might want to add to where. So here I just want to show you, you can use the long liner brushes as well to pull out the swipes. And this is called a comma stroke in painting. That's one of the things I've learned on my journey along here. Somebody was kind enough to let me know that that's what these were called. Because I've been calling them swipes since the beginning. And now I think a lot of people are calling them swooshes, swooshies, swooshes. Some people put a dot and then drag it out. But you can do them with so many tools. And this one too, you know, we're making a teardrop shape, but really you're dragging the paint out. You could just keep dragging it farther and end up with a swipe as well. But I think I'm going to do a little bit of like another leafy area here, just to kind of finish off the base of our design. Or maybe more like a little fountain. So these ones I just pulled from one side. Instead of a teardrop, I just pulled the paint from one side down into a point, and then you get that angle. And this is actually the etcher tool. You can swipe with that. And then we'll do maybe a couple dots up here. And something is put in the bottom here to just kind of tie it into the base. Maybe do a couple of apostrophes and pull the tails up in. And I'm just pulling them in towards that point where all the other tails have met at the base. Let's just put a couple dots down here. And there we have our lovely egg design. But you can see in a fairly short period of time, we have a beautiful design. I mean, this one only took me, I don't know, 45 minutes. And then paring down the video a little bit for y'all. But you have a lovely egg for Easter that's decorative and dainty and delicate. And not impossible to make. So I'm looking forward to varnishing this one, because yes, you can varnish over these pens. And you will see it is wonderful. And it really protects your work. So if you're giving these as a gift or it's going to be in the sun, it will be protected from harm and it will be an enjoyable piece for a long time. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I look forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments. Just pop in and say hi and help keep these videos going. It was so nice painting with you today. I hope you have an awesome day.